The text message hit him like a fist to the ribs. "Congratulations, sir. Didn't know you and Melissa were invited too." It was from Greg, one of his junior associates at the firm. Attached was a photo, a lavish engagement party, string lights, crystal glasses, and a smiling couple at the center. His boss, Richard Dalton, and beside him, radiant in white satin, Melissa. The phone slipped from David's fingers, clattering onto the kitchen tile. The half-eaten takeout on the counter suddenly smelled rancid. The wine glass he'd poured for her 2 nights ago still sat by the sink, lipstick smudged along the rim like a mocking signature. He couldn't breathe. 2 weeks ago, he'd signed the divorce papers. 2 weeks ago, he'd told his wife, Anna, that it wasn't fair to keep pretending. 2 weeks ago, he'd walked out of their 12-year marriage for a woman who swore he made her feel alive again. Now, she was engaged to his boss. David stumbled into the living room, the city's winter light slanting across the blinds, carving bars of pale gray across the furniture. The silence pressed in, thick as guilt. He picked up the phone again and zoomed in on the photo. Melissa's hand rested on Dalton's chest, lightly, possessively. The same hand that once trembled when she told David she couldn't stand secrets anymore. He laughed, a hollow sound that cracked at the edges. "Congratulations," he muttered to no one. "Guess I'm the fool in the story." He met Melissa at the firm 3 years ago. She was fresh out of grad school, bright, reckless, with a hunger for approval that flattered his middle-aged ego. At first, he told himself it was harmless, coffee breaks, shared jokes, late nights discussing strategy. But then came the long looks, the brush of her hand over his, the way she said his name softly, like it meant something. When she kissed him in his office, he didn't pull away. When she said, "You deserve better than a woman who barely notices you," he believed her. When she cried about being trapped in her position and how Richard only promotes the ones who flirt back, he swore he'd protect her. He thought he was saving her. Now he couldn't shake the image. Her hand on Dalton's chest, her smile, familiar, practiced, perfect. He tried to piece together what he'd missed. The late texts she brushed off as friends. The sudden expensive handbags, just thrift finds. The time she claimed to be sick the same day Dalton skipped the board meeting. The signs were there, each one a crack he'd smoothed over with denial. David's chest tightened. He'd thrown away his marriage for this woman. Anna's face flickered in his memory. Calm, tired, unreadable the night, he confessed. "I already know," she'd said softly. He remembered staring at her. "You what?" "I know about Melissa," she'd repeated, eyes steady. "I just wanted to see how long you'd lie." She hadn't shouted. She hadn't cried. She just looked at him with something far worse, pity. The next morning, David went to the office. The building's glass facade reflected the gray sky, swallowing him whole as he entered. Every step echoed like judgment. Melissa wasn't there, but whispers traveled fast. He caught Greg by the coffee machine. "You said engagement party?" David tried to sound casual, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Greg blinked, uncomfortable. Yes, sir. Last night, Mr. Dalton and Melissa. Thought you knew." David forced a nod. "Of course. Just confirming." But inside, the floor was collapsing. That afternoon, he closed his office door and stared at Dalton's portrait in the firm's annual report. The man had been his mentor, his friend, the one who'd vouched for his promotion, toasted his wedding anniversary, lent advice when things got rough. A sick realization twisted in his gut. Had Dalton known? Had he laughed behind closed doors, watching David unravel for a woman who was never really his? His phone buzzed again. A new message. "Melissa, we need to talk." They met that evening at the Riverfront Cafe, where they'd first said, "I love you." The irony stung. The water shimmered under amber lights, calm and deceitful. She arrived late, sunglasses despite the dusk, her coat too elegant for the cold. "David," she said carefully, sitting across from him. He didn't reply. "I didn't mean for you to find out like that," she began, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. He laughed bitterly. "Find out like that? You mean find out that you're marrying my boss?" Her lips parted. "It's not what you think." "Oh, I'm sure it's exactly what I think." "How long, Melissa?" After you told me you loved me." She looked down, silent. He pressed on. "Did Dalton know?" Did you tell him about me? Or was I just your stepping stone to get closer to him? Her voice cracked. It wasn't like that at first. I cared about you, God, I still do, but Richard, he offered me something real. Stability. A future. David's breath caught. I left my wife for you. I never asked you to, she shot back, eyes wet now. You made that choice yourself. The truth landed sharp and cold. She was right. He had chosen the fantasy. He leaned back, the noise of the cafe fading to a distant hum. So what now? You pretend none of this happened. Her gaze softened, almost kind. You'll move on, David. You always do. He watched her leave, her figure merging with the city lights, and felt something break inside. Not just love, but illusion. When he got home, Anna's wedding photo still hung on the wall, her smile frozen in another lifetime. He stood before it for a long time, then took it down carefully, setting it against the couch. The apartment was empty, but not silent. The echo of his own choices filled every room. A week later, he received an invitation. Richard Dalton and Melissa Avery cordially invite you to celebrate their union. Handwritten beneath, hope you'll be there, David. It would mean a lot. He almost tore it up, but instead, he slipped it back into the envelope. He went. The ceremony was at Dalton's estate. Expensive, flawless, soulless. Guests mingled under chandeliers. The air smelled of roses and champagne. When Dalton spotted him, his grin was wide, oblivious, or maybe not. David, glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, David said smoothly. Melissa avoided his eyes. During the vows, he watched her lips move, those same lips that once whispered promises against his skin. He felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak. Just a quiet, exhausted clarity. As applause filled the room, Dalton clasped Melissa's hand. Cameras flashed. David stepped closer, close enough to whisper, "Congratulations, sir. You deserve each other." Dalton blinked, uncertain if it was blessing or curse. David turned and walked out into the night. The air was cold, sharp, clean. For the first time in months, he could breathe. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, relentless, erasing footprints on the path behind him. He thought of Anna, her steady voice the night he left. "You'll regret this someday." She was right. But as he stood under the falling snow, watching the lights blur into gold and white, he realized regret was no longer the same as love. It was what came after, the slow rebuilding, the quiet understanding that betrayal didn't just destroy, it revealed. And sometimes, the truth, however cruel, was the only thing that could set him free.